everybody, Gina DeLuca here. All right, today I'm going to be addressing something that has come up in several conversations lately, and that is, what is a straight pour? Some of you may not know, but I'm the one who actually named the straight pour back in 2018. I poured, it's video number 15, and I got what basically people call pearl cells now. I called them pop-up cells because they kind of came up later. And then number 16 was basically the first Boulder cell. I hadn't named it Boulder cells yet or pop-up cells. I was just figuring out what just happened. I was trying to create a background to paint a portrait over, and I had mixed my paints extra thin because I wanted them to blend together. But what I actually wound up doing was I created instability, and fluid dynamics came into play. And when they dried, I noticed that the cells were matte compared to the background. And so I tested all of my paints to see which ones looked matte, which ones looked glossy, and I started my mad scientist journey of trying all of these different paints together to see which ones would react. And sometimes they do react differently. Sometimes you get some crazy looking cells. But the idea behind the straight pour originally, it was not that it was just poured straight out of a cup. It was going for cells without silicone, and specifically doing so by using matte paints with glossy paints and a pretty thin mix to make that happen. Because if you've seen my video on paint consistencies, what you get is the thinner it is, the more instability you have. The thicker it is, the more stability you have. So if you don't want it to change, like maybe you're doing a ring pour, then you're going to want to go thicker. If you don't want cells. If you want cells, if you go thinner, that creates that instability, and that is what gives you either the Rayleigh-Taylor instability, or you get the hydrophobic effect, which is what the straight pour is based on. The straight pour is not based on the Rayleigh-Taylor instability. It is not based on paint densities. For the most part, the densities have no effect whatsoever in my straight pours. It is the mixture of matte paints and gloss paint. So a lot of folks have kind of changed it up, and they're doing all kinds of things and calling it a straight pour. You can call your painting whatever you like. But when I say a straight pour, that is what I mean. Straight, not necessarily meaning pouring it straight out of the cup, although that was how I did it that first time. But straight meaning there's no additives, there's no silicone. You know, like, I'll have a tequila straight, please. So that is what the straight pour was originally intended. That's what it meant. So if you are trying to get the effects that I am getting, but you are following someone else's recipe, they may not be doing the recipe that creates the Boulder cells, that creates, you know, or even pop-up cells. So if you are trying to do this technique and you're having a hard time, follow everything exactly. The exact paints, the exact pouring medium, that is really going to help you, and the consistency is super important. If you're not getting cells and you're doing everything else is the same, all of the exact Floetrol, Decoart, you might not be going thin enough. So that is the number one cause of, you know, not getting cells. If you're doing all of the other same, you know, the same products, you're not getting cells, you're probably not going thin enough. And in April, the 27th to the 29th, I will be teaching at the Fluid Art Experience. And this is what we're going to be doing. We're learning all of the different aspects of the straight pour. So the straight pour, basically a cloud pour is a straight pour using satin enamels. It does have to be mixed a little bit differently because you have to dilute the satin enamels with another paint. The satin enamels are too matte and they will crack if you don't add another paint to it. But the Decoart Americana Decor Metallics line, you can mix just straight with Floetrol, and you're going to get some beautiful cells. I have found, for the most part, that Arteza is great for using as a background. Not Prussian blue for some reason. Prussian blue in all of the brands, Prussian blue does not create, does not give me the effect that I'm looking for. It does not react with these paints, but most of the other colors react very well in the Arteza line, and most of the Liquitex Basics line. Basically, they dry a little glossier than the Decoart paints, and so that's why you get cells. With the exception of Liquitex Basics Cadmium Yellow Light Hue, that was my first discovery of a cell maker as a paint, and I was adding that to other colors to make it sell, and it was working. But most of the Liquitex Basics line works as a background. The colors we're using today are Arteza Bordeaux Red. This is a gorgeous, gorgeous red, so luscious, and it only takes such a tiny, tiny amount. This was like 2 pea-sized dollops that covered all of that. It really does go a long way. I have Decoart Americana Decor. This is the matte metallics in aged bronze. It does not matter if you're using the matte metallics or the regular metallics. They both still dry matte, at least as far as these paintings are concerned. And we have the Decoart Americana Decor Metallics in copper and in soft gold. These paints have been mixed 1 part paint to 2 parts Floetrol. That mixture is then thinned with my concoction of 90% water and 10% Floetrol until I get the consistency that I am looking for, which is, this is about a 2 on my consistency scale. It is making a mound, but it disappears very quickly. That is what we're looking for. When I am using basics, I could even go down to a 1. But when I'm using metallics, I don't go that thin because the metallics are a little deceptive. This looks like a 2, but it really kind of acts like a 1 because the mica in there makes it appear thicker. So I still wind up getting the awesome effects. Before we get started, have you seen the Fluid Art inspiration cards? If you have, you can fast forward about a minute, but if you have not, what we have are 52 cards. There are 42 technique cards, and each technique card has an associated video here on YouTube that gives you all of the information that you need, the exact paint brands, colors, the consistency, of course, how to do the technique, all of the things that I can't fit on a card. This is the picture of the painting in that video. This box contains a tip for that particular technique, and here at the bottom you have the color palette that was used in that painting. These 2 boxes can be used together as the basis of a 2-color palette, or you can build off of those colors. And there are 8 bonus color palette cards. Each one has 5 color palettes. You can use all of the colors or just some of the colors. Mix and match the bonus color palette cards with the technique cards, and you have more combinations than you could ever paint in a lifetime. These are available at my website, GinaDeLuca.net, and also at Amazon.com. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is put some of my background color in my cup. just so I make sure that I have enough for my pour. I have made that mistake before. And I am going to try to save a little bit in this cup to put on top of the cup. The reason I lay down a base coat is because I want my paints to slide around evenly on my canvas. If I do not have a base coat, what happens is something has to stick to the canvas first. And if you don't have a base coat, that is going to be the paint that hits the canvas first. So if you have a paint puddle, as you're tilting it or spinning it, as the case may be, what is on the edges is going to stick to the canvas. And what is in the center is going to be rolling over the edges of the puddle. So you wind up losing your composition. If you have cool things happening on your edges, you're going to lose that. And sometimes that's where the really cool stuff happens, and you might want to opt for leaving some negative space because you had some kind of magical cell action on the edges. Having a base coat allows you to have that as an option. I like to troubleshoot before there's trouble. All right, my base coat is down, and let's put some paint in a cup. I'm going to do the copper first. Pouring from up high, I want these paints to sink and blend and churn. That is going to give me that cool 3D effect in those Boulder cells that hopefully I will be getting. And I'm actually going to leave just a little bit in these cups in case I need to add a little something to zhuzh up my corners. By the way, thank you to everyone who replied. Zhuzh is spelled Z-H-U-Z-H. There is a Scrabble word for you. And man, if they ever use that in Wordle, people are going to lose it. This thickened up on me a hair, so I just added a drop of my Floetrol water mixture. That is 90% Floetrol, 10%, I'm sorry, 90% water, 10% Floetrol. Okay, again, pouring from up high, allowing it to sink and churn. I chose these colors because I wanted something that was going to look very rich, dramatic, and I thought that that this would do the trick. So I like to leave a little bit in my cup to drizzle over the top, so all of the Decoart paints have something to react with, and there is still a tiny bit left in there in case I need to do my corners. Okay, let me make sure that I am centered. I am going to pour quickly, spin slowly. I'm going for the spiral here. Trying to stay in the center as much as possible. And I will get closer to the canvas as my cup empties. That will give me more control. But it is kind of this churning effect that happens when you pour it from up high that gets those paints to blend even more. Okay, I'm getting towards the end of my cup, so I'm going to get closer to the canvas. If I spin slowly and pour quickly, that is going to give me more of a spiral. If I spin quickly, ooh, getting a little twitchy there. if I spin quickly, that's going to give me more of a ring pour type effect. And here comes the gold. When I pour it from up high like that into my pouring cup, I get some of whatever the last color is, ends up at the very bottom of the cup, which ends up in the center of my painting, which ends up getting stretched out and becoming the focal point of the painting. And because I am obsessed with the Fibonacci, once that gold comes out, I like to try to get 1.5 turns, as that is what gives you that Fibonacci. It's 1 to 1.5. So I at least like to try to get that much. Oh, points off, points off. That's probably going to look like a snake head or something. Let me just ever so slightly fix that. Not a big deal. Okay. So I have what's left in my pour cup here. I'm going to sit it on its side so it kind of pulls, because I may need some help on these corners. Let's see. I'm going to pop these bubbles. And what happens is, when I pop these bubbles, it is going to bring up some of the paint from the underlying layers. And they are matte paints, and they have a hydrophobic effect with a glossier paint. And so that is going to give you cells. So you see these little tiny cells that are popping up, they will grow as I allow them to sit, let this paint puddle percolate, let it do its thing. And if I allow the cells to develop now, then when I stretch them, that is when you get that cool 3D effect. You will get more big juicy cells. Anywho, see, very much leaning it to one side. Someday I'm going to figure out this table leveling situation. I can't level the table because the table is pitched. The table has that going on. So it doesn't matter what I do here because it's never flat. I need to get like a big thick piece of MDF or something to sit on top of this whole work surface. So when I level my paintings, I level them to the table of exactly where it's going to be sitting when it's drying, so that it does stay level. But my spinner isn't level. I can't level this. It wobbles. So the spinner is not leveled. And so I have to kind of keep it moving so it doesn't all just go to one side, as it appears to be doing, because I wasn't moving it enough. I'm going to recenter that center. whatever else is happening out here is a lot less important than what's happening in there. I want to make sure that that spiral is centered, because all of this is going to get spun off and this is going to stretch. So I just want to make sure that that is going to be in the position that I want it to be in. Going to give this another torch. Okay. Well, I might be losing some of my copper there. We'll see what happens as this stretches out. It's not looking like I'm going to get a lot of Boulder cell action in here. Sometimes if the paints have been sitting for a while, they might not react quite as strongly. Some colors just work better with other colors. All right, we're starting to run off the edge here, so I'm going to give this a spin. Remember, you don't have to spin quickly. That is not necessary. It will still get there. I never have paint leave like a 2-inch. Actually, it doesn't even really come off the corners. So like however far those corners come out, that's how far the drips are. So if you're worried about trying this because you don't want it to get on your walls, just don't spin it so fast. As you can see, it's still moving. It will get there. So you can see like these corners are kind of having a little bit of a tough time. So I'm just going to give that a little coverage. You know, that is not only going to give those corners a little bit of juice to allow the paint to slide easier, but it's also going to cover up anything that might be standing out. No bikini corners. Not going for the negative space. And you'll see once I spin it, it's all going to blend and look like it was part of the pour. So when spinning, something to keep in mind, if you're using a square canvas, because this is all spreading evenly, you have to think about it as if it's a round. So this would actually be part of the area because all of that's still going to be sliding off while it's trying to get to this corner. So the two ways that you can do that is to, you know, measure corner to corner and then do your area as if this is a round. Or you can do this. Save a little bit of paint to cover your edges, and you will actually be using less paint if you do what I just did, as opposed to doing this for a round. I'm not sure what it would be corner to corner, but this is 14 inches, so it would be bigger. Yeah, so that's like, I don't know, 18, maybe 18 inches. So that would be a lot more paint to just cover your edge like this. So you don't have to Keep stretching it if you don't want to. I could stop. Am I going to stop? I'm just going to, just a little, right there was bugging me. Okay. It was just a subtle thing, but something that would drive me nuts. Do I keep spinning? I think I'm going to leave it alone. I'm okay with what's happening on these corners. And I don't want to lose this little spiral action. And I feel like if I keep spinning, I'm going to lose this, and then that's going to start going off the side too. And I think I want to leave this as it is. Okay, I'm going to let this sit, allow these cells to develop and do whatever they're going to do, and I'm going to bring you in for a close-up back in a few. Okay, here it is. This has been sitting overnight, actually. You can see the edges are dry. So, though I can't show you the fully dried piece, you can see what the edges will look like dry. So, you know, sometimes the paints react spectacularly, and sometimes it's kind of like, well, it's okay. That can be how the particular paints react with each other. Sometimes it can just be that that particular paint has been sitting for a while. But I'm not mad at it. It's still a very cool composition. Just not quite as many cells because the copper didn't really show up all that much and the bronze didn't really show up all that much. It's mostly just the soft gold. And that's just how it happens sometimes. That's why I keep trying all these different combinations, because maybe the copper works, you know, like the copper will attach to the 24 karat gold, but not the soft gold. Things like that happen all the time. But I hope you learned something and I hope you enjoyed. Please do like, share, and subscribe and all that good stuff. If you are subscribed and are not receiving notifications of my uploads, make sure you click that bell so you get those notifications. Do check out the description box below for info about the Fluid Art Experience, where I'll be teaching in Seattle in April with lots of other fantastic artists. And we will be going to be learning about getting cells without silicone in those classes. Also in the description box, you will find links to my affiliates, Decoart being one of them. If you use the coupon codes and the links provided in the description box, I receive a small commission at no additional cost to you. You'll find the link to my website, GinaDeLuca.net, where you can find my art and music and the fluid art inspiration cards for sale. There's a little bit of that bronze and copper happening in that center there. Also in the description box, you will find a link to our Patreon. Please join us over at Patreon. Check that out. You get weekly Q&A Zooms. So anything that you're having issues with, any questions you might have, any hurdles you need to get over, need some motivation, need some inspiration, need a swift kick in the booty, some tough love, I got you. We have a private Facebook group for the patrons, and there's some exclusive content. So check that out.
And last but not least, you will find a link to our Facebook group. Go make some art. Join us there. Post your masterpieces. Ask your questions. Get some inspiration. A good time is had by most. It is the internet after all. Okay. Well, I guess that's it for me for today. I hope y'all have a beautiful day. Now go make some art.